Hello friends, welcome back to Java 8 interview questions, and in this video we'll talk about static methods in interface. Alright, so that being said, let's begin the video. Here the very first question is, what is static method in Java interface? The answer is, static method is a non-abstract method. So I believe you guys know what is a non-abstract method. Non-abstract method means a function with its body. Alright, and a static method is declared using static keyword. And one more point, that we cannot override static method. So you keep this particular point in your mind, that you cannot override static methods. I will prove all these in the code. We are talking about static methods in interface. Alright, so let me create one interface here. Let me call it interface called utility interface. Very simple, right? As you guys know that an interface can have abstract functions, right? For example, like get length, th, I'll pass one string and a string, right? So this is one abstract function, but we are not talking about abstract at the moment. Our idea is to create one static method. So you're right. Now what is the definition? Static method is a non-abstract method. So a function with its body, right? What I will do, let me create one function here. Let me just call it as a boolean. So I'm writing a function to do the null check. I will pass one string and I just want to make sure that this particular string is not null, right? Return. So we'll write, okay, so what I will do, return, let me just write true. I'll write the implementation in a minute. What it says there's a problem, right? Compile time error. What it says, change is null to default, or change is null to static, or remove method body, right? Because an interface in Java, either it can have either an abstract method, or if there is a body, if there is implementation, right, then it should be declared either default or static. So we have already covered the default, and today we are talking about static. So I will declare this particular method as static. So static is the keyword that we need to use with the function, and this particular function has its method body, right, that you can see. Now let's write the implementation. What I want to do is I want to check the null pointer. If this particular string is not null, if this is null, then it's a null value, as false. But let me do one more check here. I want to check that it should not have a blank value as well. Equals input question mark, then again it's a null value, and else false. Simple, right? It's very easy. I have used ternary operators. So if input equals to null, then it's a null value. Else check for the blank value. If input is equals to blank, then it's a null again, else false. Simple, right? Let me print one this out here, system.out.println. So you write here my interface and is null function, and the string is input, right? So I hope I've covered that static method is a non-abstract method in the interface. It is declared using the static keywords, and we cannot override. Let me introduce a main method here. Now, as you guys know, so what I will do is let me create one boolean is valid. I'll simply use a flag called is valid equals to. Now I want to call this particular method. So how can I do that? I will use the interface name dot, then the function, and then I will pass some value here, right? So value is okayjava. Let me just sys out system.println is valid. You will see the result here. Let me do something like this. Happy, right? Nothing much interesting. The only point is I'm calling the static function of the interface by using the interface name and then the function name, right? Let me run this one. I hope you guys can guess the result, because I'm passing value, so it's not a null value. I'm expecting false, and that is what you see here, right? So in case if I have to go and pass null, Now I hope you guys can guess. It's gonna be true because it's a null value. Even if I pass like a blank string, I'm expecting again a null valid true because it's a null value, right? So I'll just make the change again. Okay, so here we have understood the static function. How do we declare? How do we create a static function in the interface? And now the next question is, what is the purpose of introducing static methods in Java interface? One of the very good question. What is the idea behind introducing static methods? So the answer is Java interface static methods are good for providing utility methods. What does it mean? Now you can see here, right, that we have introduced a new function to check a null value, right? So you don't have to create a separate class, a utility class. You can write all your utility functions. Java interface static methods helps in providing security by not allowing implementation classes to override them. So I will just explain this point in a minute. So what I will do, so the point says that you cannot override the static function. Let's see how it helps. Why can't we? And what if I can? So what I will do is I will take this out. Let me create a new. I hope you know this one, right? What do I have? One abstract method here. Simple, null, right? Now let me just take this. I'll keep this one as it is and let me override. So basically if I have to use this particular function, I need to provide the implementation, right? Let me implement this particular function and I have to provide the implementation of is null check function. So what I will do, let me just take this here, put it here. So I'm calling is null, my class, right? So let me write the implementation because I'm a developer A. So basically developer A, I'm a beginner. I'm just writing the implementation. So what I will do is I will simply check, okay, if input equals to null, then it's a null value as false. It's very simple implementation. There is nothing wrong, right? Now if I have to call, I will have to comment this portion out and let me call. How can I have to create the object of my class first. Object equals to new, because this is the way you invoke your functions, right? Is null, and I will pass a string here, okayjava. Simple, right? What I'm doing here, I have my own function, right? And let me run this one. I hope you guys can guess the result because okayjava is not null value, so it's not a null value. I think it should be like this. The variable name is not right. This makes more sense, right? Because this value is not null. Not null is false. This is not a null value. What if I pass null here? That's cool. Let's do it. So null is true. Now what if I pass blank? It's not a null value. Why? Because I'm a beginner level, I'm a poor developer, and I did not write the check to check the blank string, right? For example, you can have another developer, a new developer, and which like the developer, for example, now I'm talking about developer B. And how developer B writes your code? Simple, return, and this time I will check. Okay, let me just put a check that equals. If the input is equals to a blank, then in that case it's a null string, right? Correct. Now if I run my code, it will work fine. Why? Because blank is a null string, so it says yes, your string is null. That's correct. Now basically the point is here to overcome this kind of challenges, because now any developer A or B can write their own implementation and then they can do some mistakes, right? They can do something wrong. It's very easy because you are allowing them to provide the implementation. Now to overcome this kind of challenges, right, what Java has did that they have introduced something called static function, right? Let me just comment this one. So you have the static function, you have the implementation, you cannot override this one. So I will explain how, but now, right? So just to overcome this kind of silly mistakes from the developers, they have introduced something called static. So static is like you already have the implementation. You simply go ahead and use the implementation. Now if I use this one, it's okay because here I have used the null check, I have used the blank string check, right? So the idea behind static function is to provide an implementation, and you don't want your developers to write the code to avoid these silly mistakes. This is what this particular point says. Java interface static methods helps in providing security by not allowing implementation classes to override them, right? Because you cannot override. I hope you guys are getting it right. Now what is next? We can use Java interface static methods to remove utility functions that you can see here, right? You can just simply create utility function, so you don't need to have a utility class. Correct? Let's move further. Now the next point is what will happen if I override static method, or how can you prove that you cannot override interface static methods? Very good question, right? This is one of the important. Let's see. For example, I have a static method here, right? I want to provide the implementation. So what I can do is, let me just take this. I have isNull here also and isNull here also. Local function, right? Correct. Now the first, your question is what will happen if I override a static method? So first of all, the answer to this particular question is that you cannot override. How? If you create a exact same function in your class, in your local class, right? So this particular function, basically you are not providing implementation to this particular function, it's your local function. Why? Let me add something called, because whenever you override a function, you will have something called @override annotation. So as soon as, because now you are trying to say your program, your compiler, that I'm overriding this particular function is null here in my class, that's why I've used @override annotation. Now see the error. What it says? It says the method is null of type static annotation on your function on your own implementation. You will get a compile time error. So you can never override the static method because it belongs to the interface. Now if you need to call, you know how to invoke, you use the interface name and the function, right? So if I remove this one, it means that I am not, it's removed, right? I have a function here, I have a function here. Now let me do one thing. So I'm calling is null from the utility class, utility interface, and I'm passing null here, this one, right? I have a class, I'm using my object, so basically I'm calling the function which is local to my class, this one. And if I'm using interface name to call this particular function, it means I'm calling the static function, right? Now let me run this one. So you have used is null method from the interface and you have passed null. So is it not null? No, because it's null value, so you have got null. But your developer's implementation, right, it says false. It says it's a valid string. Why? Because you did not put the check to check the null value. Correct. Even if you want, you can put the same implementation, you can write the same implementation here also, you will get the same result, but again it won't be the same method. It's a separate method, it's your own local method. I hope I'm making some sense. So you need to keep this in mind that you cannot override the static methods of the interface. If you try to do, how can you prove that? You try to go ahead and add @override @override annotation, and then you'll get the compile time error at the same moment. All right, let's move further. What is next? Is it possible to have multiple static methods in an interface? Very good. So let's see. Let me just write one more. So what I'm going to do is let me create one more static functions, and let's see, can we have it one? So static, I will write here public, this time integer, and I want to here write a function. So again, okay, let me just put the boolean check max length, and I will pass here one string. I'm trying to get the max length of the entire string. So what I will do, I will use if. First of all, I'll check whether it's null or not. If is null, your string. If this is not null, because not null means in the sense it is a valid string, then what I can do is I can use else length, and I want to check the length of the string, right? But here I have used the is null, like another static method, just to check the length of just to check whether the particular string is null or not. If it is not null, then only get me the string length, else return me 0, right? So you see, do you see, like you can write multiple static methods, there is no error, no compile time error, nothing like that. Now in case if I have to use this particular get length, so what I will do, let me just comment out this particular code. Let me just call, I want to dot out dot println. I will do in the same class. Again, how do you call a static method? You use the interface name and then the function name. You need to pass a string, so I will pass okayjava here. So this guy will come back and will return the length of the string. So what I will do here, length equals to, right? It's very simple. I'm just calling. You guys need to remember how can you invoke a static method. So you always need to make sure that you use the interface name and then the function to call the static function. Let me run my code. And you see here, it will first go ahead and check the length. Okay, so can you please check whether the particular string is null or not? If it is null, then only go and get the length, right? Now if I have to pass, say let me pass null here, the result is 0. Why? Because my null check will verify, oh yes man, this particular string is null, so there is no need, return 0. There is no input. All right, so I hope I'm making some sense. So this is how you can go ahead and introduce multiple static functions. So the answer to this particular question is yes, it is possible to have multiple static methods in an interface after Java 8 release. All right, let's see what is next. So what I will do, I will create one more interface here. Interface, so I will call it as some utility, and here I will provide one static. So this time boolean check special character. Let me pass a string str if your string dot equals, ignore case, if my string has @ right? So then return true that the string has a special characters, else return false. So what you can do is you can change this particular check. You can write your own implementation here, right? So you can use a regular expression just to find out whether the particular string has some specific character or not. I'm not going to write the regular expression here because that is not what we are covering here. Here we are talking about the inheritance of static methods, right? So now you guys know, I hope you know that a class, if you see here, a class here, a class implements an interface, but an interface extend the another interface, correct? So now I want to see whether this particular interface check special character has @ sign or not. So what I will do, how can I call this one? I will go to my class. Again, I will use same sysout. Check @, right? How can I call? I'll use the same interface. Now, because we are talking about the inheritance. So as part of inheritance, I was supposed to have this particular method check special characters here. But if you see here, dot, I don't see check special characters function here. You cannot extend the static methods of an interface, right? So inheritance of static methods is not allowed. Answer to the question. Now the question is, how can I call this particular function? So I have to use this particular interface called sum utility. What I will do, let me just go down here. I will use sum utility dot, you say the function is here. Can I check for @ here? Oh, okay, and then YouTube. What is the implementation says? String contains. It's much easier. So I just change the implementation. I just want to see that whether this particular string has @ character or not. Now let me run this one. Okay, you see here it has got, so this particular string has @ special character, right? Now, so to answer this particular question, we cannot inherit the static methods of the interface. So interface here, this particular interface was trying to inherit this particular static method. So interface does not allow the inheritance of here. If you guys think that you need more explanation, just let me know in the comment section. I will just try to explain in more easier manner, or I will take one concept in one video. All right, let's see what do we have next. All right, so here we are done with the interview questions on static methods and interface. If you guys think I have missed out something, just let me know in the comment section. I'll answer, or I'll try to answer as soon as possible. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.